Welcome to another edition of our Test Drive podcast. I'm your host, Lee Bodette. I'm also the host of Test Drive on the YouTube channel. We hope you can check that out sometime. Been in radio, broadcasting for over 40 years. Host of Sport Car USA and a car enthusiast my entire life. So again, welcome everybody. Scott Nickerson is with us from Sport Car USA, and he's doing the producing of this podcast. And also with us is Matt Artus of Handy Chevrolet. And Matt, tell us all about yourself. We mentioned you're at Handy Chevrolet in St. Albans, but how'd you get started and where are you up to now?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and glad to be here, especially being a part of the Handy family. It's kind of nice to tie our whole lot in together to do this collaboration. So my name's Matt Artus. I've been here for 8 years in sales. I always worked production, went to school for business management, got my degree, and then I found a sales job that I really liked, but we were getting really slow, and they were going to lay me off. I just had this weird suspicion, so I came up and spoke with Dan and Jason, and they basically hired me on the spot, and so the rest is history.
Handy Chevrolets in St. Albans, Vermont, which is where Sport Car USA is based out of. And Matt, you also do a little dabbling with Sport Car USA. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But I understand that you've been to a number of trainings through Chevrolet, the Chevrolet trainings that they offer. Camaro, Corvettes, what type of training and where did you go for these trainings?
Yeah, so when you sell a product like the Chevrolet Corvette or the Chevrolet Camaro, they really want you to stand behind the product, know the product. So they send us to Monticello, New York, which is a raceway. I think they have a horse racing track too and a casino, but it's a great time, and they put on a whole show. They pull out all the stops. You get to test all the cars. You walk up to the racetrack and you got 40 Corvettes sitting there running. You get your gear on, you get a helmet on, and you get behind the track or get on the track behind a pro driver, and you drive the car yourself. And then you learn what the car can perform like so that you can relay that to the customer. So when I get back from these trainings, I'm amped up, I'm ready to go. And, that's the easiest time to sell a sports car is when you come back from training, because you're all, knowledge is fresh, and you know that, and you can feel what 455 horsepower in a Camaro feels like, and, 595 or 495, or 490 in a Chevrolet Corvette C8. So it's been a great experience and certainly a lot of fun.
Sounds like we should do a test drive episode with one of these trainings. Sounds like it'd be a lot of fun for sure.
It would be.
So let's break it down a little bit. Camaro, we'll start with the Camaro. What was that like for you to go to the track and test out the Camaro? What year was it?
So this was in 2019, I believe, just before the pandemic hit. Once the pandemic hit, there was a couple of years of no training. Right. But in 2019, we got to test drive the SS on the track. They were almost all SSs. There was a couple 1SSs mixed in there. And they basically videotaped you in the car so you could see what you look like, how many Gs you were doing around corners. Nice. It was basically like an Indy track, so you weren't just going in an oval circle. You were, cutting in and out of turns. It was a lot of fun. And they make sure you know top to bottom what the car is, how it compares to the competition, Mustangs, any car that is in the same line. And then they get into you and give you the driver experience where you get to drive them and put them to the test. And the pro driver that's in front of you leading, he'll go as fast as you can go, basically. So if you keep up with him, he's on the foot.
So you didn't have anybody sitting right beside you?
No.
You had the car to yourself?
The car was all to myself.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And then once you get done with the SS division, they actually bring in a hot lap and a ZL1 Camaro, so you can feel what that 650 horse feels like. And that was spectacular to have a pro driver. So I was in the passenger seat, the pro driver was driving me, and it's insane.
What kind of rules do they lay down? I mean, it seems to me like whenever I go to these trainings, I've only been to a couple, no Corvettes or Camaros, but there's always one or two of the quote-unquote drivers, people such as yourself, that really don't obey the law.
Yeah.
They don't obey the rules, I should say. Do they lay down the law so to speak, and say, hey, you can only go so fast, or no burnouts, things like that?
I mean, it's kind of just respect to not do a burnout,
Right.
but you're basically the pro driver will say, if you can keep up with me, we'll keep going. So, I mean, we were doing 130 into turns.
Whoa.
So you're cooking high speeds.
Is it a bank track?
Yep.
Nice.
Bank track, but Indy-like. So you kind of cut over it's almost like a checkered flag in turn. And just a lot of fun.
How much control did you feel that you had? Did you feel in total control of that vehicle?
Total control. So when those cars, specifically, are in, I'm blanking on it now. When they're in traction control, when they're in traction control, you have full control because there's no slip because it's always looking for traction. So you can pretty much lay on the gas pedal and give it almost as much as you can, and the car's just going to know how to handle. When you get in the car, they're already in track mode. They ask you not to do it manual paddle shift, but you always find yourself trying it out just because.
Yeah, and I know whenever I bought a sport car and it has traction control, I've been told do not take that off unless you're on the track. And you're saying it was still on when you were on the track. Did anybody ever take the traction control off? Or?
I'm sure they did, but you never really stopped. Like once you went, you were going around the track until you were done.
Okay.
You do like 3 laps, I think, and you're done. But when that traction control's on, you can really lay into the car and it won't spin out on you.
Yeah, your accent's not going to come up and say hello.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So that's the Camaro experience from Matt Artus, who's with us from Handy Chevrolet in St. Albans, Vermont. Matt, what was it like with the Corvette?
So because it was at the same raceway, it's very similar as far as that goes. The only thing that we didn't get to do is go in a hot lap on the flat plane crank Z06 Corvette.
Nice.
So we didn't get to do that, but we did get to take a hot lap in a regular C8. That was awesome too. To be just under 500 horse. They do that on purpose with Chevrolet, so your insurance is a little bit less than what an over 500 horsepower would call for auto insurance. So that was specifically designed that way. But very similar structure, learning the car inside and out, what the capabilities are, what the differences are between a standard C8 and the Z06. And the Z06 is a pretty highly sought after car and pretty hard to get.
What year was the Corvette, and did they have different models like the Z06 there? And
they had Z06 on display, but they had C8s all the way from the 1LTs all the way to 3LTs. And
the year?
21.
21.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right when COVID started ramping down a little bit, they opened it up and allowed us to go to the track, and that was phenomenal.
I would say anybody that buys a Camaro or a Corvette should have an opportunity to track it, right?
I agree.
Yeah. And don't 100%. They offer that to the general public, people that buy cars like that?
They do, yeah. If you buy a Chevrolet Corvette, you can go to Chevrolet Corvette School in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's pretty spectacular, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've got a 2020 Corvette, as you know, because you guys sold it to me.
My favorite.
Over at Handy Chevrolet. And I have not tracked it yet, but after listening to you, I really should make that appointment.
Yeah, you should, because it's a lot of fun. Yeah. It is. And you really don't know the capability of your car until you get on the track.
Right. I would imagine that your confidence just is so much better knowing about this car and driving that car in those conditions.
Absolutely.
That I'm not going to say you're fearless, but you're in control at all times.
Absolutely. Yeah. You get a lot of confidence built up from driving it on the track. If you drive on the road, you're like, oh my God, this is a walk in the park. But on the track, it's next level. So
what was the difference between a Corvette and a Camaro on the track?
So your downforce on the Corvette is a little better. Camaro has a higher stance, so it doesn't have quite the downforce that the Corvette did. So I thought the Corvette handled a little better when you're going into like a 90-degree S-turn. versus the Camaro, but both, and like I said, traction control on. It's amazing how much control you actually have, and you do feel some slide, when you're going around the track. It's a lot of fun.
So I know when I had my C7, you might remember that one as well. It was the yellow one.
Yeah.
It was like glue on the road.
Yeah.
I was not afraid at all. I mean, once I got in it and fooled around with it a little bit, the only time I was scared was when my elbow, you know where that traction control is, right in the center console area?
Yeah.
My elbow hit it off one time, and I was showing off, and I decided I wanted to burn out a little bit, and man, it scared the hell out of me.
I bet it did. Yeah, the cars can really let loose if the traction control's off.
Yeah, definitely.
You're going to leave some rubber down.
Yes. So what's the future on the Camaro? We keep hearing rumors.
So 2023 contract end date, I think, is scheduled for January of 24, believe it or not. But I think that's the end of Camaro as we know it. So we'll stay tuned to see if they release anything new with Chevrolet. They've talked for years about El Camino. They've talked about like a Nova. So we'll see if they bring something else out. I hope that they do, because I think there's a lot of Camaro lovers out there that hate to see it go. But if you have a 23 out there, or you can find one, snatch them up, because you can't get them after this year.
I was going to say very collectible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you really should try to get your hands on one if you can.
Absolutely.
And in your eyes, do you feel that the Camaro will ever come back? I know ever is a long time, but do you think it'll come back in your lifetime?
I do. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, I think it's way too world renowned of a vehicle to not come back around, because they've had it for so many years. Breaks my heart to see it go, but hopefully we'll see it back in the near future. And
the future of the Corvette going all electric with the 2024 model, is it?
Yeah, I haven't heard much on that front. Yeah. But just like the Hellcat and Charger, they're going that way, I guess. Right. So we'll see what the future brings. There's still a lot of gasoline engine lovers out there, and I think it's going to be hard to turn those into electric, but who knows what our future holds. Electric is pretty impressive, because it's like turning on a light switch. That power's there. Yeah. So it's pretty instant.
Well, that really brings us full circle, Matt, because it brings us to Sport Car USA, where we specialize in modern muscle cars. Your impression of Sport Car USA, because you're part of it too. You've sold some cars for Sport Car USA.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to just have a platform where we're specifically allocating our time and energy and advertising money to put it out there, that you have a place here in your local community where you can come up and buy a sports car. You can test drive one. You can check them out. And it's nice just to have that center point where you can go and have an exclusivity of sports cars only. A lot of people that are in the market for a sports car, they want that, undivided sports car enthusiast feeling, and you get that when you go to Sports Car USA, which is great.
Yeah, and with the EVs coming and the Camaro leaving, the Challenger leaving, a few others down the road, I'm sure, Sport Car USA is going to be the one-stop shop where you can get that modern muscle car and gas engine vehicle.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the classic cars too.
Yeah.
They've got some nice older stuff down there. That's nice. So that's really great to have at our fingertips for sure.
So what do you drive, Matt?
I drive a GMC Sierra 1500 diesel.
I hear you.
I get 30 miles a gallon with my pickup truck.
Whoa.
I can tow 9,000 pounds. It's pretty sweet.
You're an outdoorsman, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We own a house in Franklin. We've been there for 5 years now, and we love it. Being close to Franklin County community and being able to serve our customers at the highest level is great, and definitely love the outdoors for sure.
All right, Matt, well, give us your best pitch on why people should get a hold of Matt Artus at Handy Chevrolet in St. Albans for their next vehicle.
If you want a world-class experience, I can give you that. And that's just being straight up. And I don't just care about the sale, and I relay this to my customers, and almost every one of them that I've sold to can tell you this. I'm not here just to sell you a car. I want to be here through your entire ownership and for 10 cars down the road. So I think laying that foundation right from the jump helps create that trust. And I feel like a lot of my sales lead to friendships. So I don't just have customers. To me, they're my friends, and family. It's great.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I love the car business.
Yes, so do I. That's why I'm in it.
That's right.
So, Matt, tell us about your very first car that you ever owned.
My dad was an on-the-road salesman, so he had a 1998 Chevy Lumina. I think it was a 98. 220,000 miles. I drove it for a week and it died. So that was the end of that. And it's basically an Impala is what it is. But
So did you sell it, or what happened with that car?
No, it just died.
Died.
I don't even know. I think we brought it to the junkyard or something. But let's bring it back.
One of the things I've mentioned before on this podcast is I like going to junkyards.
Yeah.
And I wish the cars could talk. You just sit there and you look at a car, and it's like you wonder what the history is on that car.
The stories they can tell.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
My dad's told me some stories about some old 69 Caprices and Chevelles and Novas that,
It's funny how people's first car always seems to begin with their mom or their dad or their brother or their sister.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
So with that, after 1 week in the junkyard, pretty much, what was your next car?
My next car was my dad's pickup truck. He handed that over to me, but that was a nice one. That was a 1990 GMC Sierra, regular cab, fleet side. And that truck was awesome. That brought me all through high school, and then and I ended up selling that truck and just living off the money in college and buying an old beater. I think I had a Volkswagen Jetta after that. Yeah.
Dad never said, hey, if you sell that truck, anytime you sell it, make sure I get the money?
No. He wanted me to have it. It was a gift. So, he wanted me to have it and either live on it or invest. He didn't want me to work through college. He wanted me to work on school through college. So he wanted me to sell it and be able to just, buy the odds and ends stuff that I needed in college.
Right.
So he allowed me to use the money for that.
Loyalty is a big thing with most car buyers. And I'm sure you've seen this. I know you've seen this, Matt, at Handy Chevrolet. What does that mean to you? Like, I know people that, hey, you know what? They grew up, their father was a GM person, their father was a Ford person, and there's no way the Ford person or the GM person was going to switch. They were going to stick with GM. They're going to stick with Ford. They're going to stick with Chrysler.
Correct.
You see that all the time, don't you?
Yeah. My father is one of those people.
Yes, yeah.
Our whole driveway has been Chevrolets as long as I can, except for my GMC Sierra. My dad had an old 1980 pickup that we called Old Blue. I mean, it's been decades of Chevrolet. So when I went and I started learning that I like sales, I knew Chevrolet was like, it's right down the road. It's a perfect spot.
You knew about them.
Yep. And I'm born and raised in this community, so I know a lot of people. My dad sold heavy equipment. My mom's a hairdresser. They know a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I've been able to use that to help me through my career for sure.
Do you think that's changing at all with the younger generation? You grew up with your dad being a GM person. I grew up with my dad who was a Ford person. And I find myself all over the place now. Initially, it was Ford for me, and then Mercury, which is kind of part of the Ford, right? Same family. Do you think that's changing at all with the younger generation, or are they still staying with the brand that they grew up with their parents?
So my perspective on that is that we're in a very instant gratification part of life or whatever decade now, where people just they have a want and they want to fill that want or need, and they aren't brand specific like they used to be. I mean, I'm sure there's still some loyalty out there as far as that goes. A lot of my customers have been buying from me for years, and they just love Chevrolet. So, I think there is some, but I do think we're veering away from it a little bit with our younger generation for sure.
I definitely think the market has changed because it's saturated with choices. There are a ton of choices out there. But I'm a lot older than you. I grew up with like Pontiacs. They're gone. Oldsmobiles. They're gone. So where did these people go once those manufacturers were gone?
Well, I think some of those obviously are GM related, so they just transitioned to a different GM vehicle. That's my 2 cents on it.
Right. But the younger people today, they just seem like I'm going to get whatever I think is cool or whatever's going to, meet
instant
my needs.
gratification.
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't matter that it's not a GM or it's not a Ford, it's not a Chrysler.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. Yeah. You touched a little bit on the pandemic, and we were actually talking prior to the podcast about the pandemic, how it's affected so many different people in so many different ways. How has that affected you, Matt, at your Chevrolet dealership?
So people pre-pandemic were very accustomed to coming in, they right down to the color options. Now it's sell what you can see, not see what you can sell. Mm-hmm. So if I have a blue one on the lot and you want red, you're probably going to drive home in a blue one.
Right.
So options have become less. Allocations, which are orders that we get from General Motors, those are less of. And a lot of times they'll be unique. Like they'll give us a Chevrolet Silverado, but it can only be an LTZ. And it can't have the tech package. It can't have, adaptive cruise control, the 360 camera view. There's a lot of things that are on constraint due to chip shortages. That's been our biggest struggle. So therefore, inventory's down. Because inventory's down, programs are down. And in relation to sports cars, those allocations are very few and far between. We've probably sold this year, and last year, I would say 10 C8s. And probably 2 or 3 of those have been our factory orders. Everything else we're buying from dealerships or dealer-only auctions that have, 90 miles on them, 300 miles, 2,000 miles, just to have something to sell. And people are open to buying used cars now, I think, more than they ever have before, because there's just no options out there for new cars.
And that's increased the price of the used cars.
Of course, yeah. Especially when you lose programs, So programs drive prices. So if there's less programs, your trade's worth more. If there's more programs, your trade's worth less. It's all relative to the market, for sure.
So we're going into the third year. Once the pandemic hit until now, we're into the third year. There's still a shortage of vehicles. And I would imagine that every day, maybe not every day, people will come to you and they're in disbelief that they can't order what they want specifically.
Yeah.
And then when you tell them it's the same way all over the country, there's more disbelief.
There is. Yeah. People don't want to believe you because they want what they want when they want it. I had a guy call me yesterday, wanted to order a Camaro. And I said, listen, I'll call you when I get an allocation and we'll lock up the order. It takes about 3 months to get an order in, but it could take you 6 months to get an order to fill. So that could be a 9-month wait. I could get one next week and you could be driving it in 2.5 or 3 months. So it really varies on what kind of car you're looking for. Electric cars are extremely hard to come by right now because the ones that we have that are coming in are snatched up a week before we get them. So you don't even get those to sell once they're on the lot. You can't even show them because they're sold. So it's become very competitive. Buyers are racing to get the same car. But it has helped on the flip side for people getting more for their trade.
Right.
It all washes out, I think.
And from a GM perspective, since you sell Chevrolets, what is the allocation process like? How does that work?
So every Thursday, General Motors releases their allocation list for us. I'll give you an example. This week, we got nothing. Not one order all week that we can fill.
This is the week of July 4th in 2023 he's talking about.
Amazing. So last week, we got 8, I think, in total. So it really is hit or miss. Most of those are family SUVs and trucks. That's mostly what we sell. Very few sports cars, electric cars. Those are becoming fewer and farther between, which makes it tough for people to believe that you don't get an allocation or can't get an allocation. A lot of people pre-pandemic were used to coming in and you'd find them a vehicle at Schumacher, Chevrolet, whatever the dealership is. And now you're not doing that because those dealerships don't want to give up their bread and butter inventory.
We were talking earlier about some of the cars that are no longer going to be manufactured. That also includes sedans.
Correct.
You've had, what, the Impala that went away?
Impala, Cruise. I haven't seen a Sonic or a Spark in a while. I don't know if they discontinued it, but I haven't seen it. So they're definitely discontinuing. They redesigned the Chevrolet Trax 2024 to a front-wheel drive only, so that took the place of some of the cars. The Chevrolet Malibu is still available, so you can get that. I wish they'd come out with an all-wheel drive sedan, personally.
Yeah.
I think that would be a gold mine, but...
Especially in northern Vermont, which is where we live.
Yes.
Nobody wants a front-wheel drive.
No.
And I remember when front-wheel drive was the thing. It's like, you won't believe this. It's great in the snow. Now you can't get rid of a front-wheel drive vehicle.
Yeah. I try to sell them and just say, hey, look, for years we drove front-wheel drive.
Yeah.
So why not just throw a good set of snow tires on it, and it's just no different than an all-wheel drive. So there are ways. It's just whether your customer wants to manipulate their buying decision based on what you're trying to sell.
Is there a dream vehicle in Matt Artus's brain that you're thinking of getting someday?
Yeah, I think personally, I think my ultimate would be a 1970 Chevelle. Mm-hmm. But if I were to pick something new, I would love a 2023 2SS with leather convertible Camaro. That's what I would really love. Standard transmission.
Of course.
And they make some nice colors now, so I'd have to pick on that. But the Camaro would be probably right up there for me.
That's funny because in prior podcasts, I've mentioned that my dream car or cars would be like a Chevelle or an Olds 442.
Correct.
Yeah, there's something about the rumble and the sound of that exhaust.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. My dad had a 69 Camaro growing up and a 1972 Chevelle, so I've always been accustomed to that and the look, the sound. And the ease of working on it.
Yes.
You can open the hood and you don't have to take 15 plastic pieces off to get to the carburetor.
So true. So true.
You know, and
then how do you put it back together? Huh?
Exactly. So, you know, that's what I'd like, just because they're easier to tend to and maintain.
Matt Artus from Handy Chevrolet in St. Albans, Vermont, thank you very much for being with us.
Absolutely.
Really do appreciate it. Our producer, again, is Scott Nickerson from Sport Car USA. I want to thank everybody for listening, and reminder that please check out our test drive series on the YouTube channel. And we'll see you next time on our Test Drive podcast. I'm Lee Bodette, your host. And remember, let's never forget the men and women serving this great country of ours. Goodbye, everybody.